Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. I hope you all had an amazing weekend, and because it's Monday, you know what that means. We got to look at a Go Collect hot list, and this week we're looking at trending comic books for the week of March 19th. Now, for those who don't know, Go Collect puts out a weekly article or bi-weekly article that switches between hottest comic books and trending comic books, and this week we're looking at the curated list of trending comic books, books that have really started to shoot up in their volume of sales on the list this week. But before I get into the books, if you guys could drop me a like or comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, help support the channel, do one of those things, I would appreciate it. But let us get into the article here today. I will put a link in the description. Of course, this article is written by Matt Tuck, so if you want to do further reading, you can get his analysis. But let us start with the number 5 book, and this one is a very cool one. We're talking about X-Men number 94, new to the list, sitting in the 95th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, you guys know this is the first X-Men in title, or I should say the first new X-Men in the X-Men title. And what do I mean by new X-Men? Well, of course, we got giant size X-Men number 1 that saw the first appearance of Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler. That book would effectively introduce the new X-Men team, but because it was the giant size issue, we didn't actually get this iteration of the team in the X-Men run until this book right here, written by Len Wein and drawn by Gil Kane. Now, this is a really interesting book out there in the plethora of X-Men keys that are out there in the market, because for a long time, giant size X-Men number 1, Hulk 181, a lot of the other X-Men keys were really the big books that people would go after. And this one was kind of that like next best thing type of book. But because of the market with where we are today, and because everything is really getting out of reach, this book is one of those ones that really shot up due to the comic book boom in 2021. I mean, don't get me wrong, this has always been a great key book. I mean, it is the second appearance of all those characters like Storm, Colossus, and Nightcrawler. So for that reason alone, it is a great book to have. But, kind of like things do, once we sort of got the excitement and all the prices going up in the market, this one had a little bit of a correction. And maybe because we're at this sort of new floor, that's kind of why it's showing up on this trending list now, because, people are starting to think, okay, the prices have leveled off. This is maybe a good time to jump on this book. We have Multiverse of Madness coming out. Professor X is maybe going to be in that, so people are starting to think, okay, here's the foundations for X-Men coming again. And this book right here is just a great one to get your hands on if you can't afford some of the other keys. And as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll see there are 9.8s, 35 on the census. Fair market value suggests $80,000. There was a sale last year around the $67,000 range. And then, if we look at, what one had the last couple, 30-day moving average, here are the 9.2 grade. Fair market value suggests $4,000. 30-day moving is kind of selling right in line to that around $39.55. And then down here at the bottom, Go Collect has this at the low grade around the $300, $325 range. But honestly, when I go into eBay looking for this book, you would be hard pressed to be able to find a copy selling for less than like 500 or 600. This is still a big, massive X-Men key, and one that a lot of collectors would love to have in their collection. All right, let's go on now to the next book that is trending on the list this week, and this one is a very cool one. This is The Dark Knight Returns number 1, new to the list, sitting in the 85 slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this would be the first issue of the Batman The Dark Knight Returns series, written by Frank Miller, that came out in 1985. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the more iconic Batman covers there is in the market. I mean, I think a lot of collectors absolutely love what Frank Miller did with his Batman run here in the 80s. And of course, we got the new Batman movie, a lot of excitement around the character, a lot of renewed excitement around sort of the DC universe. And, people and collectors are, sort of looking to those Batman keys that they can add to their collection. I mean, obviously, one of the problems with having Batman be your favorite character is that, for a lot of people, Detective Comics number 27 is just kind of out of reach and not a possibility. So a lot of people are kind of looking to those more modern Batman keys. And this one right here, with Frank Miller on The Dark Knight Returns, is one of those ones that, Batman fans love to have. I mean, his like version of Batman really sort of brought that kind of, dark film noir aesthetic to the character, or at least, took it to sort of that next level, that, that personification that we really have come to love in a lot of the animated shows and a lot of even like the Nolan Batman, and especially this new Batman that just recently came out. And as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll see that there actually is a 9.9 on the census, but we don't really need to talk about that. Let's go down here to the 9.8s, 619 on the census. Fair market value suggests $1,300, but as you can see, 30-day moving here is $1,625. So definitely coming off of the heels of the excitement of the Batman film, this has definitely been a book that is selling pretty high prices at that 9. 9.8 grade. Then of course, because it's an 80s book, not going to see too many books slabbed here at the low grade. But typically speaking, when I go into eBay looking for this thing, for finding first prints of this book, you're going to be, spending around the $125, $150, $160 range or so to get a decent presenting copy. All right, let's go on now to the third hottest trending comic of the week. And the third hottest trending comic there is this week is one that, of course, we've talked about so many times on this channel. This is New Avengers number 7, up 48 spots, sitting in the number 12 slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the book that came out in 2005, written by Brian Michael Bendis, that would feature the first appearance of the Illuminati team. Now we got the Multiverse of Madness trailer insinuating that we have the Illuminati in Doctor Strange number 2, led by Professor X, possibly. We don't know that, although it's basically been confirmed at this point. And the entire comic book market lost their minds for this book. Everybody was going after this thing. Things were selling off of the charts, and this book absolutely went to the moon. Now, of course, like all things do, it had a little bit of a slowdown, a little bit of a correction, but it's still a very, very hot book in the market. And actually, just the other week, it was officially announced, confirmed, that the Illuminati is going to be in Doctor Strange. Of course, when we got the trailer, everyone assumed it was the Illuminati, but it's not like the trailer actually said, and hey, Doctor Strange, meet the Illuminati. But recently in an article, it was confirmed that we will be seeing them there in the film. So that could be one of the reasons why this book has had a little bit of an uptick. And as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll take a look at the 9.8s here. There's 430 on the census. Fair market value suggests 240, but obviously that's wrong. 30-day moving on this one has been around the $493 range. I think that there was actually a high sale of $700 at the time of the trailer. But generally speaking, this book has been, kind of holding steady at that $400 plateau. I mean, there was a $495 here. There was a $377 here. Someone got a really good deal. There was a $399, a $415, a $435. So, generally around that $400 price point has been holding pretty strong for this book overall. And then down here at the bottom, of course, being a more modern book, you're not going to see it slabbed too often. But when I go into eBay now looking for raw copies of this thing, you can typically find buy it nows sitting now around the $50 to $55 range or so. All right, let's go on now to the second hottest trending comic of the week. And the second hottest trending comic of the week is one that is also a very cool book I'm sure you guys are well aware of, but this is Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars number 8, no movement, however, sitting in the 4th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, you guys know this would be issue number 8 of the very well-known Secret Wars crossover event that would feature the origin of the symbiote costume, a book that came out in 1984, written by Jim Shooter and drawn by Mike Zeck. And this book right here has been one that has been really hot in the market for the last few years or so. I mean, I think this book really started to come onto the map when we got that first Venom movie, when everybody was thinking about those symbiote costumes. This is when that book had that initial spike up in the market. And then when we look back to 2021 with Venom number 2 and all of the comic book boom, this is a book that really got hot next to Amazing Spider-Man number 252 and many other symbiote books as well. And I actually think that this is one of those books, along with ASM 252, that still has a very bright future ahead of it. Coming off the heels of Spider-Man number 3, we recently got those VFX leaks that were, doing a test with Tom Holland maybe wearing the black symbiote suit. And so a lot of people are thinking that, hey, maybe if we get a new trilogy with Tom Holland as Spider-Man in the Spider Universe, maybe we're really going to be exploring, the symbiote aspect to the character. And actually, now that we have Tom Holland and Tom Hardy, kind of in shared universes with Sony, it's very likely that we're going to be getting some exploration of Spider-Man meeting Venom. And for that reason, a lot of these books that kind of came out in this time frame where we had the black suit are really, books that are probably going to continue to be hot, if not get even hotter. And speaking of numbers, let's take a look at them right now. We'll see that there are actually some 10.0s on the census. Last sale back in 2019 for $13,999. There are also 22 9.9s on the census. Last sale for that one in 2021 was $16,800. But let's focus on the 9.8s here. Quite a few on the census, 4,337. Fair market value suggests them to be around the $750 range. 30-day moving however, is around that $800 range. So, a lot of books on the census, but also a very, very popular book that trades right around its fair market value. And then down here at the bottom, of course, there's not going to be too many slabs for this thing, but typically speaking, when I go into eBay looking for this book in the raw prices, it's going to set you back around that $150 to $160, $70, maybe $80 range, depending on the deal you can find for yourself and depending on the grade. All right, let's move on now to the hottest trending comic there is this week on Go Collect's list. And this one, of course, is the infamous Spawn #1, up one spot, sitting in the #2 spot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, you guys know this is the book that came out in 1992, first issue of the Spawn series, featuring the first issue of the Spawn character, who, of course, was written and drawn by Todd McFarlane. Now, in my humble opinion, outside of DC and Marvel characters, I think it is a pretty safe thing to say that Spawn is probably the most popular non-DC and Marvel superhero there is in comic books. And I think the sales for this book back it up, because as we remember in 1992, with the introduction of Image into the comic collecting scene, this book absolutely took over the comic book market by storm. I mean, all of those Image creations at that time were, lighting up the lamps and selling off the charts. Everybody had copies of this book. And now, kind of here we are 30 years later, and people still love this character. I mean, Spawn has been probably the most successful indie superhero run there is in all of comic books. One of the longest standing runs there are. I mean, there are so many Spawn fans out there in the collecting market. We had that movie in 1997, which, I haven't seen in a while, probably hasn't aged that well, but at the time when I saw it, it absolutely blew my mind and I absolutely loved that thing. And possibly one of the reasons why this book is continuing to be hot in the market, continuing to trend in its sales, is because there has been that announcement that Todd McFarlane is going to, try to direct his own Spawn movie. There's also been rumors that Jamie Foxx is attached to play the character of Spawn. So, interesting to think about that. Like, what would that do for this book out there in the market? And as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll see that there actually are some 10.0s, 6 on the census. Hard to know what those would go for. Some also 9.9s. We see 69 here. Last sale back in February of this year for around that $5,040 range. But then here at the 9.8s, you can see there are a lot of this book on the census, 8,657. Fair market value for those suggested around the $200 range, 30-day moving right in line to where fair market value is at $218. So a book that, like, even though it's an extremely popular character, I think due to the fact that there are so many copies out there, especially in those 9.8 grades, is really going to be the thing that holds the value of this book down. And I think if we do get, a movie with the Spawn character, that could definitely push the values up for this thing. But I can't really see this book ever really going, much past like the $400, $500 level, simply due to the fact that there's just so many copies out there. And then down here at the bottom, of course, you're not going to see too many CGC books at the low grade, but typically when you go into eBay looking for a raw copy of this thing, I usually find them sitting around that $30 to $35 range or so. Well, that is all I have for this video. Those were Go Collect's trending comics for the week of March 19th. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys have any of these books? I mean, the one that's really interesting to me is that new Avengers #7 book with the Illuminati. I'm really curious to see where the Illuminati goes from here. Will we be getting more of them in the MCU, or is this just going to be a one-off? Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next video.